What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? ModzvilleUSA here, back with another video. And what you're looking at in front of your eyes here, this is a PS2 Slim motherboard. Not all PS2 Slims were created equal. This one is a 79,000 series, very similar to the 9,000 series, the two last revisions of this board. And in this video, we're going to be installing a Modchip. Now, PS2s are kind of notoriously difficult to mod, but they vary in difficulty depending on the model, and we're going to be doing the most difficult one. As you can see, I'm pointing out those little legs there. We're going to need to solder a ton of wires to those very tiny legs, so we're going to be hitting it under the microscope. And it's just going to be a bit more of a solder porn video as opposed to a proper guide. But let's take a look at the diagram. So here's the diagram. As you can see, the points in these images here, almost all of them are directly on the leg of some kind of a chip. Now those BGHI ones, those are the ones that are going to be a little tricky for most people, but I do have a nice little method to make it much easier, and it's simply you dip the wire in flux, you tin it up with your iron, you snip it back so it's not super duper exposed, you rest it on the chip, and then you come in with your soldering iron flat and just rest it on the wire. The wire will heat up, the solder will attach to the leg of the chip, and you're good to go. You just got to be really careful to not have very much solder on your tip at all when you're doing that, because if you bridge those points, it's going to be a bad time. Now the BIOS wires are the RUQWVT, all of those that you see in image number 3. Those ones, if you bridge them, it's much easier to deal with, but bridging any of the A, B, G, H, or I wires, A not so much, but B through I there in image number 1, you bridge those, you're going to have a bad time. So let's jump into the microscope footage. And real quick, here's just a little example of what I mean about pre-tinning the wires here. So as you can see, I got my Kingbo Flux, dip the wire in that, and my nice and wetted tip there, I'm just running it over the wire. As you can see, it's burning off quite a bit of insulation. That's a pretty long lead, and I just take my flush cuts, come in, snip it back, bada bing bada boom. You don't want to do it over the board, but this is just a little example. Okay, so we're just going to jump right in. So I lost the footage of attaching that first wire there, but we've got three more difficult ones to do here. As you can see, it's glazed income, aka Flux. Very important. I like using the paste flux over the no clean flux, as it just flows much nicer. It pretty gross, like gets pretty sticky. Cleaning it up's a nightmare, but there's just something about the way this leaded akimbo flux flows that just makes your life a whole lot easier. So I don't know if you totally caught that, but you can do this without a microscope, but having one is very handy. Really, all I do is I just rest it on top of the pin, and then I come in with my iron completely horizontal. And you're going to want to have one with like a nice, like a small tip with a nice flatness to it. If I remember, I will put on screen the exact tip I'm using with my Kaiser T12 iron. And this is where it gets real dicey. So we need 3 directly next to each other here. And the insulation on the 30 AWG wires is thick enough, surprisingly, to make it so they just they kind of overlap. So just getting them, it's that small of a job that your wires are kind of going to be bumping into each other like this, and it gets a little dicey trying to line this up. So I'm getting it as good as I can here, trying to get that connection with dealing with the insulation overlapping, because it's just so damn close together. It's not impossible, but it's a bitch. It's a hell of a thing to do. So there's 2 out of 3. And you really want to go left to right. I'm trying to separate it here. And if you completely break off the insulation, and expose the wire, then you're probably going to want to start over, because you don't want those shorting out. So I came about this a little bit of a different way. As you can see, I couldn't get that connection on properly. So I bent the first one off to the side so I could properly attach it. It's still a pain in the ass, but this just gave me a little bit more room to work with here. As you can see, I'm not just enough room to not collide with the insulation from the other wire. I'm not getting a solid connection yet until I eventually do. And once again, the secret, it's not good enough. The secret is to pre-tin your wire here. Don't try to tin the chip legs itself. The solder from the wire that you tin will melt and make contact as long as it's fluxed up good and proper. As you can see, I've got a solid connection to that pin. It's not the sexiest connection you've ever seen, but it is solid. And here's for the third one. As you can see, I bent that wire out of the way again to give me just enough room to get in there. And it's all very tight. These Modchip installs are no joke. But on the plus side, PS2 Slims, the 79,000, the 9,000, they're all quite cheap. Modchips for these guys you can get dirt cheap. I sell them on the ModzvilleUSA.com as well. Modbo 4s or 5s. They're not expensive, so this is something if you just really want to tighten up on your craft here, it's definitely worth a shot doing any of these PS2 Modchip installs. And that's a sexy joint right there. That's pretty nice. Look at that. Nice and sturdy. Yeah, doing something like this will definitely test your skills, improve your skills. And if you fuck it up, I mean, it's just a PS2. You don't need to feel too bad about it. There's millions of these things out in circulation. They're not exceptionally rare. They're not valuable. Do your best to not fuck it up. Fuck it up never feels good. But it's definitely not the end of the world. It's not like we're not working on a Turbo Express or something precious like that. It's a dime a dozen PS2. Now I'm taking my curved Hakko tweezers here, and I'm just giving them a nice kink, because routing these wires is very important. We don't want them rumbling around. We want to get them nice and set. Now, a lot of people go real fucking nuts with the glue. I see a lot of old school Modchip installs dealing with lots of broken consoles. When you get in there and, to your surprise, luckily see a nice old PS2 Modchip in it, a lot of people go real crazy with the glue. I try to avoid using any glue at all costs. but in certain scenarios, a little dab will do. And I figured this was a good way to route it. I routed the cables between those two chips there. Not sure what those chips are, but it fit them in there quite nicely, and I believe I just took a little dab of super glue just to keep them all intact. And don't forget to clean your flux. Always remember, spraying some 99 rubbing alcohol on that hot boy right there. We'll hit it with a soft bristle toothbrush. Give it a little cleansing, give it a scrub, give it some love. Make it look like you will eat off it. Get the jizz out of there, and give a little kiss. Make it look like a little sweetheart. Mwah! Look at that. I'd give that a lick. Get that little fuzz out of there. Give it a little smooch. Mwah, 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 mwah. Look at that. That's a hot boy right there. That's some sexy joints. Oh yeah. Oh, scrub it. Yeah. Ooh. Look at that. Look at that, dude. Okay, so we're moving on to the simpler portion of the job here. Still might be a little crazy for some novice there, but it's all about right tool for the job. I'm using the same tip here. It's got a nice flat end. I really love this tip. I use it for pretty much everything. And with this chip here, this would be the BIOS chip. These are the BIOS connections. And if one of these isn't wrong, we will likely get a black screen or not be able to boot into the original BIOS, something along those lines. So you know what to check. The previous wires, those have to do with the controlling the disk drive. So if it boots into the matrix menu, all of that, but it won't play disks properly, it's likely those other wires. But this is the BIOS chip. These are all BIOS connections. Now, what I did, I fluxed everything up and had a little, not a crazy amount of solder on my iron, but enough to flow some solder, and I pre-tinned the legs of this chip. Now the tough thing with this portion is just not burning off too much insulation. It's really easy to just start burning off insulation on your wires. It's all manageable, but I like to keep the leads really short, but there's just really no getting around when you have them that short and you heat up the leads. The insulation just starts rolling back, as you see, like that. It just starts burning up, and then you got a big exposed lead. Always when soldering, you want to be mindful not to bridge any connections. It's very easy to do if you're not careful, and by that I mean a lead touching something else conductive. So say if we were to bridge two of those legs together, but the simplest thing, like this one, is a bit dicey. If I put that lead out too far, you can see that metal ground pad there, that brass looking pad. So say the lead was just a little too long, it could touch that, and with the naked eye, maybe you wouldn't see that. See, as you can, it's very close to touching that brass pad. It's not, but it's close. As you can see, I'm not feeling great about that connection. It just doesn't look sexy. A lot of times with these joints, just my own personal preference, I like to have it like, I don't like to be able to see the lead of the wire. So I can get pretty anal about just having a solid solder joint and not being able to really see the outline of the wire. And this is just me trying to get it up to that standard, but it's just not working out. It's making a solid enough connection. It's just my own analness of wanting a fully solid solder joint. and those leads there, the leads on these wires, they're all longer than I'd want them to be. But once we deal with cable management, we can really get it in a good spot to where none of those are going to touch, as we will do later on. Now I'm only going to do one side of this. Having to solder with my left hand, I can do it, but it's not ideal, and I don't want to have to make my work suffer for the sake of a video. Hopefully I can get the money together to get a nice like DSLR camera, where I can get shots similar in quality to the microscope. But for the time being, this is what I got. And if I were to flip the board to continue to use my right hand, it just wouldn't reach here, unfortunately, to where I can get this chip in the frame. That seems to be my issue a lot with using the microscope, because the base of it will clip, and it's kind of a drag. It'll only fit certain sections certain ways. So for a lot of the times, if I really want to get the shot, I gotta do it left-handed, which I'm just not. I'm okay at it, but I'm not. It's nowhere near as good as my right hand. I think we got one or two more wires on this side. Boop, boop, boop. As you can see, this one's giving me a bit of trouble. And again, I'm making solid connections. It's just, I'm really picky about my joints there. Oh, that looks pretty good. Hit it with some 99 alcohol. You got to be careful where you're getting your 99% rubbing alcohol in a post-COVID or COVID world. There's a lot of scammy 99 alcohols out there that I was actually having a really big issue for about a week until I figured it out. Using some 99 alcohol from Amazon that as soon as I started using it, I started having issues with everything I worked on, and I believe it's because they were putting something conductive in it, which was no bueno. Get it from legit sources. If you can, get it from like a makeup supply place. It's really good. If you know someone who's a esthetician or someone who does cosmetic stuff or whatever, you can get it in bulk and have it be for sure legit. Don't go buying off Amazon any 99 at this point. As you can see, I've got my wires routed in somewhat of a pleasant demeanor. Now, I don't go crazy with the wire porn, strictly for aesthetics, never gonna see again kind of stuff that you'll see from fellow YouTuber Retro Gaming Arts. Maybe even Voltaire fits in that category, as he does his PS2 mods. He gets real, he tries to make him like into like its own kind of like ribbon cable with super glue on the bottom, all of that stuff. That shit's neat, but it's totally unnecessary. As long as you have your wires routed in a nice way, you're in a good spot. You wanna keep them in order, but a lot of that can be done with the tweezers and just forming and training the wires in a certain way. Will get them to behave the way you want them to. And if you do end up adding some glue, just add a dab here and a dab there. Keep them all in order. Now I'm going over those joints I just didn't feel great about one more time, just to get them in a spot where I feel good about them. So I added more Flux and just went over them one more time. Especially that third one there, just not perfectly aligned. I'm using my tweezers, getting them looking real sick. That is way better already. That one was, doing these overdubs, that one was really pissing me off to look at. So thank you, ModzvilleUSA from the past, for fixing those joints. They were bumming me out. They're probably bumming you guys out too. Oh. Let's all thank Modzville of the past for fixing them, making them look sexier and better. That's nice. That's a little sweetheart. Mwah. At this point, I've got my sexy phone footage here. Put back the PS2. Everything's back together in order. And the chip is assembled, soldered to, insulated. Everything's connected. This is the point where we test it with a nice little burn game here. We'll see what happens. Oh, am I going to hit the power button? Oh, I'm just going to tap it a little bit. Doing something with my finger there. I think I'm showing you that there's two switches to engage to make it think like the tray is closed. On this one, it's just only the one switch on the power board. Whoa, you can see the laser. It's spinning up. It's booting it. Atta boy. Running quite flawlessly. I'll tell you right now, these work out way better in the PS2 Slims. In my experience, there's all sorts of wonkiness installing these mod chips in the fat PS2s. If you dig the Slims, I think they're a good choice. But try to get your hands on a 7 or like a 7000 model, 70012, any of those, any 70, etc. Slims. Those are the ones. Those are the ones that play PS1 games perfectly, as opposed to ones like this, which is all emulation for PS1. So yeah, it's that simple. Let me know in the comments below if there's a gnarlier mod chip installed in this, and we'll give it a go. But as far as mod chip installs, I think the later model PS2 Slims are as gnarly as it gets, as far as I've seen. But I'm open to trying something more brutal. Let me know in the comments what that would be, and we'll give it a shot here. ModzvilleUSA here, wishing you a happy new year. Signing out. Back, let's say what to do.